Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. As promised, this is the game 2 of the final of the Fox tournament between Shin Jinseo and Liao Yuanhe. The first game, Liao Yuanhe won as black, and now he is playing as white in this game. Shin starts out inviting a Mies joseki, but Liao Yuanhe dodged it because I think there was a saying that Shin was the best player when it comes to the flying knife joseki. So Liao Yuanhe was afraid of it, and therefore he dodged the Mies joseki. So they play out a very normal joseki locally, and Shin takes the corner, and of course Liao Yuanhe would take the remaining corner. It was a miai anyway. Black approaches, white pincers, and this is a very annoying pincer. Here, if black just jumps out, then white is going to play the Kema, and it's not so certain how black is going to follow up locally. Of course, there are some follow-ups, but it does feel a little bit uncomfortable for black because white is building on the white side. Therefore, to gain a slightly better result, black placed the push. And now white pushes and cut. And here, black Ataris and play the tiger's mouth. This is the joseki move. White comes back and fixes the weakness, and black also does the same. So back in the old days, white would have this way of fixing, but this was refuted by AI because AI has a beautiful follow-up that is to poke at the problem that white has over here. And it turns out to be super annoying. If white just turns here, it's solid, but this is a favorable exchange for black, and therefore black is in a better position. Because of the lack of good response to black stone over here, people discovered that the correct move is to play the Kosumi. So you might have seen in some AI josekis like you need to play the Kosumi. That's why you play the Kosumi. Black now spends another move to prevent white from playing the Hane or something like that. White turns on top, a very good directional move. We're trying to build on the left side. It's not a time for us to say play the approach or play 3-3. Although those are okay moves, this move is a beautiful directional move and it's a very urgent directional move. Very well played by Shin. Black Hanes on top, white Hanes, and black extends. And here white plays the AI move. This is definitely studied by Shin. And then we all know Shin as the world's number one player, he studies a lot of AI. So this is all still under his control. Black Hanes on the bottom. So here another variation is for black to simply turn on top, playing good directional move and not worrying too much about the local territory. White's response is going to be poking at black's cutting point, forcing black to connect, and then Hane on the second line, claiming the territory that black gave up. But black, as we can see, thanks to this turn on top, if black adds another move, then it looks like white's moyo is vanishing. So white is basically gaining territory at the expense of sacrificing the moyo. And that will, of course, be also an equal position. In the actual game, black Hanes to answer white's attach, and white decides to push on top after the exchange. Black Hanes, white Hanes, black connects, and white now extends. It looks like the moyo is getting more and more scary. Let's see how Shin is going to deal with it. Shin goes into the moyo directly. It's a very good invasion point, leaves a lot of possibilities for us. White bumps into black. This is an absolute sente. And here, white did not play the cap. But if white actually cap black inside like this, I'm just curious, and I want to ask this to my viewers, how many of you think you can live on the bottom side as black here? Comment below the video and let me know. Okay, let's move on. So if white actually played a cap, it's still a very complicated game. But Liao Yuanhe was obviously very worried about Shin's ability of invasion. So here the best solution is for black to not panic and follow the principles of invasion. So first, black plays the peeping move over here, looking at white's weakness over here. So we're not only building a base for us, but also we're threatening white's lingering threat over here, right? There's another small knight coming in to further threaten white. So white needs to respond, and then we play a Hane. After the exchange, we play a Kema, further expanding our base. Now, white obviously needs to come in and get rid of our base. So white peeps in, black blocks, white extends, black turns on top, and white captures on the second line. And here we follow the principle of invasion, that is to attach to our opponent to look for ice space. Of course, here if white hanes, then we simply extend, and it looks like we have some ice space. And this would not be a great move. It leaves a cutting point behind and also gives ice space to black. Maybe a more resilient move is for white to extend, but still this would help us out. Then we can probably Kosumi and try to get out, and also because we have a helping invisible helper over here, right? Because later on when we play the peep, white pretty much has to connect. Then there's a big chance that we can get out through here. The most fierce variation is for white to Hane inside, but then we can, so the shape really matters here, right? If we cut like this, our shape is very inefficient, white extends, and now we're actually in grave danger. So we can't really afford a single mistake when we try to invade. Correct move is to Hane from the left side. Now, there's a lot of moves for us to play over here, right? If white Ataris, we extend, and there's always some sort of move we can play, but also we're relying on the fact that our peep here is a sente. So this really helps the fight over here. And it's not so easy for white to figure out how to capture black here. And I can guarantee you that if white played like this against Shin, Shin would have absolutely no problem leaving the group inside. That's why in the actual game, Liao Yuanhe was very worried about that. Therefore, he decided to get rid of the weakness here first, letting Shin slide out. Here, white plays an exchange. That's a sente against the corner. And then another move, right? So basically what white is doing is just taking territory, right? When black comes in, he's pretty much just saying, hey, I give up. I give up on killing you because I know how good you are at invasion. Rather, I'm just going to take points, points, points. And then hopefully we can go into the endgame peacefully. Black blocks, and now white comes to threaten the cutting point. This is a very cautious move, as we can see, right? This is still following the idea of just taking points, strengthening the group, not really trying to kill these two stones. Alternatively, white could have chosen a very aggressive variation that is to directly cut black off, and this is not so easy for black to deal with either. If black hanes, of course, white will cut black into two groups, and this is just, it takes a lot of skills for black to maneuver here. But that's not what was played. Instead, Liao Yuanhe played very solid and tried to just threaten black over here. Black attaches on top. This move is slightly softer. It's of course following the principle of invasion. We're trying to attach our opponent. But here, a better move is probably for black to kick, prevent the connection underneath. If white respond, then we can play another Kosumi. The idea is trying to break white's territory even more, but also making sure that this group cannot connect to the big group over here, and black can execute some counter attack later on against white. In the actual game, Shin attached on top, white hanes, black cuts, and white starts a fight over here. White connects, and here we can see this is slightly difficult for black because there's so many surrounding stones for white locally. Black Ataris, white extends, black pushes down, and now white turns on the third line. Here, black played a Kosumi here, and this is trying to threaten, basically, to connect underneath. But of course, white cannot respond to this right away, right? Because when black turns, white cannot really get back because there's an Atari, and then there's a Hane, and then that's the time for white to resign. So white has a very serious problem. So white needs to fix that right now. So at least we can see white was able to secure a big chunk of the territory and then worry about the problems over here. Black turns on top. So the reason black doesn't want to immediately connect through is because that's too passive, right? Even if white just push on top, black didn't really break too much of white's territory. These three stones white pretty much doesn't care about, and the outside is controlled by white. This would be a leading game for white. So even if we manage to survive our group, it's very important for us to stay very, very efficient and very proactive in our gameplay. Shin showed us that by pushing on top, right? Not only we can connect, but now we have higher pursuit that we want to threaten White's group over here. White turns, black keep pushing, and white has to extend. Otherwise, the Hane is too severe. Black keeps pushing, and here white plays a Kema. This is the very first big inaccuracy from Liao Yuanhe in this game. The reason this is a problematic move is because it leaves a very serious weakness. A better move here for white is to simply play the Kosumi, right? Making sure this cutting point is gone and it's looking to connect over here. So if black plays the Hane, white can Hane into the corner. Now, this is not a sente against the corner. Black is likely going to push, and now it's just going to be a fight over here. So white needs to run towards the direction, and black also needs to run towards top. So that's a dynamically equal game for both sides. And of course, if black just connect through, that's a little passive. White will Hane on top. If black cuts, white simply extends and fight this out. And white is not really scared of this fight over here because white has so many help on the outside. This is also an equal position. In the actual game, Liao Yuanhe played a Kema. Of course, this is looking for more efficiency, but this leaves such a big problem behind. There's an attach over here. Shin now plays the Hane. It's a very good move. It's pressuring the stones over here and also looking at basically the attach. When white Hanes, black cuts. That's a sente. White has to go back and capture the two stones. Black extends and white extends as well. Otherwise, there's a ladder. And now black plays the pincer from the outside. Here, alternatively, I think black can just cut over here. That might be a more practical variation where black just immediately take the profits. The variation is that if white keeps attaring in this way, first of all, black was able to capture the 4 stones and therefore gaining some extra territory. But when white cut, here black has a tiger's mouth. This is a sente because looking at the cut, white connects, and that's also a sente against black. Therefore, black needs to connect through. And like this, black is able to get all the territory, and then we'll see what happens with these 2 stones over here. So that would be a slightly better position for black. What Shin played in the game is a little bit too subtle. Like Shin was trying to attack the entire group from the outside. White Hanes, black blocks, white connects, and now Shin decided to cut. Now there's a difference between cutting now and cutting back then, because when so before white Ataris, white plays a sente in the corner to basically extend 1 liberty for white. Because when they play the same variation, everything is the same on the left side, but now white can cut on top, and this tiger's mouth, as you have observed, is gone. So that's the whole difference. So Shin is choosing another path, that is trying to gain the outside by sacrificing the group over here. Black makes an exchange. That's an absolute sente. White has to defend it, and now Shin cuts on the outside. If white plays the Atari, then black will simply cut over here with an Atari. White extends, and black comes back to kill the group over here. And as we can see, this would be a very bad position for white because black simply gained too much territory over here. This is not acceptable for white. So white only has one choice, that is to back down and let black get the outside. Black connects, another sente, and white comes back to capture the entire black group. So as we have seen, Shin has given up a lot of points to gain this wall over here, trying to build on the top side. So the game at this point is more or less equal, and Shin goes into the corner playing a very standard move to secure all the territory. White Hanes, black Ataris, and now white plays the 3-3 invasion. The reason you see this weird exchange and then Tanuki is because white wants to choose whether he wants to extend later on or if he wants to play the flip Atari later on. That's a very advanced technique from professionals that they want to reserve the choice, right? Rather, depending on what's happening outside, later on you might want this move instead of playing the flip Atari. White plays into the corner, black blocks, white crawls, and black extends. White keeps extending, and black doesn't even care about the Hane, because for real, there's not much value because black is super thick over here. So that's a very good move from Shin. It builds on the right side and also but also like a giant moyo on the left. And now white has to go in and invade. And here is probably the highlight of the game. The invasion technique from Liao Yuanhe, I was very, very impressed when I was checking it. The first move is this weird poking move. And this happened to be AI's first choice as well, which is kind of crazy. It shows how much these pros have studied local variations, right? Whenever you have a shape like this, they can accurately find the AI move. Very impressive. So here, if black just try to cap white from the outside, that would not work because there's a lot of aji going on in here. So maybe white has an attach over here. But as you can see, like these stones are not very strong either, right? When white Hane's out, they also have a liberty problem. So white will probably be able to live here, even if with a few moves like this, very hard to kill. So Shin reads that out and decided to protect the weakness on the bottom here. And the next move, another AI first pick. It's crazy. You would think like white's going to try to live the corner or drag this out, but no, the idea for white is to put a stone inside black's territory, but then sacrifice it right away. It's a very advanced idea. White invades like this. It's a very nice stone. It's looking at the attach, the kema, therefore Shin prevents all of that. And then white plays out the kema. Of course, black doesn't want to push and cut like this because the shape is terrible, but also the fact that white can now connect through with the stone over here is a big problem for black. And therefore, Shin played a very good move. Not only completely captured the stone on the third line, but also poking at the connection problem over here. And the next move, Liao Yuanhe, is just showing one fancy move after another. A peep on the 2-3. Very nice move. It's a very nice testing move against black. Of course, if black just try to capture stone here, then white has the opportunity to drag stone back later on. Maybe white won't play it right away because there's a life and death problem. But if once white drag the group out, I'm just illustrating, if white was able to get out, then later on there's a very annoying endgame move for black. So this exchange would be very favorable for white. Therefore, in the actual game, black says, well, everything dies here. No negotiations. White plays the Kosumi. Black squeezes, and locally, this is dead for white. Yeah, so the reason it is dead is because if white plays the Kosumi, then we can peep in like this. There's a Hane, there's also... So you have to spend a move to kill, to make the eye. Then black can just Hane here, and white doesn't really have two eyes. All right, so when black squeeze over here, white now plays out a move to try to make use of the aji that black has over here. And this turns out to be a very big mistake from Liao Yuanhe. From the first glance, it looks like a very good, a very nice move, right? Like for most human players, I would say if Liao Yuanhe was playing against any other top professionals, then this is a very strong move, right? It's not easy to deal with. White is looking at, right? If you play somewhere else, white is looking at the sequence over here, and black is in a very awkward position, of course. But you have to remember, Liao Yuanhe is playing against the #1 in the world. Against Shin Jinseo, you really have to play every move accurately, or you could be punished anytime. So before we talk about what happened in the game, let's look at what white should have played. What white should have played in this position is to attach black over here. So it's following the principle of attaching to our opponent. We're trying to invade. Black honeys, white will jump over here. So after an exchange, the correct move is for white to take the vital point. This is the vital point in this position. This move not only gets rid of the aji that white has over here because of the 3 stones that black has, but also it's looking at the liberty problem that black has with these 4 guys. And it's also trying to help out the 2 stones over here, helping them to connect back home. And this move is also aiming at invading on top. So it achieves multiple things at the same time. And it's the vital move of the game right now. Next up, we'll have black jump out, white pushes on top. If black extends, then we can push on top. And at this point, it's more or less an equal game, because after the push, this invasion becomes very serious, and white is also looking at potentially saving the stone over here. And then this game would just be kind of close, and depends on how the players play their endgame, because we can see that white has a giant territory over here, and black is trying to compete against that with a giant territory on this side. Very close game if the game played out like this. And of course, there's some other variations, such as black honeys on top, but it's more or less the same idea. White just needs to try to connect the group back home, and this invasion will just, black has to spend moves to fix it. So that's the correct idea, but of course it's so normal for human beings to not read that deep and understand why this is necessarily better than what Liao Yuanhe played in the actual game, because at the first glance this looks pretty good too. Except Shin Jinseo decided to counterattack, and this counterattack is really strong. Now it's looking at disconnecting white over here, but also these 2 stones might be facing some aji as well. White now comes back to attach on black stone, but it's a little bit late. Black honeys, white bumps into black, black extends, and white now pushes on top. Black honeys, black extends, and white plays out the tiger's mouth. Looking pretty good for white, so what is the problem? After white plays the bamboo, completely breaking the territory over here, Shin turns on top, white squeezes, and black comes back to kill the corner. So after a few exchanges, all of a sudden, Shin is showing why this move is so strong, because it has a beautiful follow-up. White honeys on top, black cuts, and white has to go back and fix the problems. And here, after Shin plays out this peep, we can see why this was the vital move, right? This move was way too strong from black, because it was the shape move for both sides, right? For both players, this was a very important shape move. And now, because of the beautiful shape move that black got, black is able to peep into white and disconnect white over here. White Ataris, black connects, and white now comes back to capture. Black pushes on top. That's an absolute sente, or else black plays the tiger's mouth that will disconnect white. White has to extend, and as we can see, what black was able to achieve is to disconnect these 2 stones in sente. And in the meantime, we can see that black also got like strengthened on top over here. All what white got was just dragging the stone back over here. So that's why white is falling behind in this game. Black honeys in the corner, absolutely giant move. And then white Ataris, black takes the stone. White plays the tiger's mouth, and here Shin seals the game with this Kema. It looks very passive from a professional point of view, but this is Shin's way of saying that I won this game, and there's absolutely no way for white to come back into the game. And he is absolutely correct, because at this point, black is leading quite a lot in this game. So it's not even a minor difference or a close game. Black is simply leading by a lot. The reason that happened is white never had the chance to invade on top, while white also lost these 2 stones, not to say that the corner obviously are all dead. So this is why black is leading in territory. And I would say this game, Liao Yuanhe played very high quality, and it must be very upsetting or disappointing for Liao Yuanhe to figure out that his losing move was actually was actually this move because it looked pretty good at the first glance, right? And it's hard to tell why this is a mistake at the first glance until Shin showed him, after a bunch of moves, that this move is just shining on the board. So let's come back to the endgame place. So at this point, the game is just kind of over for Liao Yuanhe. They played out some endgames, but I don't think they really matter because against Shin Jinseo, this is completely lost for White. And because Shin Jinseo literally has one of the best middle to endgame, and he's the number one in the world, he's very good at converting this into a victory. So eventually, Liao Yuanhe tried to fight a lot in the end games, got some points back, but those are more like controlled. Shin was just giving those points away because he knew he was winning anyway. So Shin, after this game, brought this final into game 3, and that would be the deciding game of the final. When that game comes out, I will definitely make another video about it. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one.